friends. This is Simona dialing in. I use the pronouns she and her. I'm calling in from Urubamba, Peru. Can you hear me all right? Is there? Okay, great. So welcome to the Earth Holder Community Online Sangha. This is our second Sunday of the month online Sangha gathering. It's wonderful to be here with all of you and see all your faces. I am very, very excited to have the opportunity to introduce Brother Man, who has so generously is here today with all of us and is going to be guiding us in practice in the online Sangha today that is titled Living and Practicing in Times of Crisis. And so just as an introduction for those of us who may have not had the chance yet to meet or practice with Brother Man, I'm going to read Brother Man's bio. So Brother Fulfillment, or Brother Phap Man, Brother Man for short, is monastic ordained at Plum Village in 2007. He received the Dharma Teacher lamp transmission in 2016. Brother Man has been supporting Wake Up since its formation in 2009 or around then. Brother Man is currently part of Dharma Pathways, a new monastic collective of monastics who are outside of the Plum Village monasteries, supporting communities and projects like social justice. He is living in New York, but calling in today from Morning Sun and putting most of his time into supporting people and communities, Buddhist and non-Buddhist, that are responding to the climate, ecological, and sociological crisis that we are facing. Brother Fulfillment loves living out in the forest, connecting and rejoicing in the wilderness with friends. Living in New York City is a current sacrifice of practice. The question on koan that he is looking at now is how to bring beauty, joy, peace, nature, wilds, and deep connections back to our city spaces. And I'm also going to include the link for dharmapathways.org into the chat. So again, feel free to contact me at any point during the call. And I'm going to bow out and turn the space to Brother Man. Thank you for being here.
Wow, thank you, Simona, so much for welcoming me. And thank you all for coming online. I know that the Zoom hours are probably all budgeted for everyone, so I appreciate everyone choosing to be in community today. And I think that we might want to just start with some grounding and being in our bodies and settling. Maybe just one brief check-in and word. I am in Morning Sun Practice Center, which is in near Alstead, New Hampshire. It's a practice center in our tradition, if you're not familiar. And I'll be here for the winter. It's like a winter retreat for me. So I'm very happy about that, just to clarify. And Simona, would you tell me what the time frame is? I was looking through the documents and I couldn't track down in time. When should I be handing things back over to you or to others?
Thanks for that question. I think we could probably go into Dharma sharing, let's see, around maybe 30 or 40 after. Yeah, and then we'll come back as we could begin.
Wonderful. And maybe before we ground, you can do this with me if you want. If you would like to turn on your camera, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too, but it's just a practice of like scrolling through and sort of connecting to the Sangha. Some of the faces you might recognize, some might be new, but it's kind of this practice of offering our connecting energy, and it's at the same time we look around, we can also feel the ground under us, chair, and take some breaths while we're doing that, just to see that we're here as a Sangha to practice together. This is our community for an hour or so. Yeah, bowing. To see how your heart feels as you look, or maybe you already want to go inside and just you can feel the energy of connection. And yeah, so just starting from there, maybe we can move into some going inward a little bit, knowing that maybe there's a container around us. Maybe you want to even before we do that, just take a look around your space. If you're lucky like me, you might be outside, but you might also have something like an image, like a flower, or to say it's nice to look behind you sometimes, just to know that it's safe back there. Um, and it's about creating a container for our bodies to be in. Our nervous systems can really come down and come home to this moment. So, and then we can always do that too. Like we can look at the screen, maybe see some faces, or we can look out and see something that helps us there, or we can close our eyes. And I'll invite you to do that if it feels good, and come inside into the body and just maybe feel the contact of our sit bones and our feet, our knees on the ground if we're on a cushion. And take a deep breath like that if you want to. Sometimes I like to go into the natural breathing by doing some sort of active breaths, but like taking a deep breath, you can do that. Just hold it for a second, let it be in there, and let it out nice and slow. And let your weight be held on the earth. And then just going into a natural breath, seeing the rising and falling of the abdomen, the chest. And maybe you want to move a little bit. Sometimes meditation can feel constraining, and I like to think of meditation also sometimes as having some fluidity, and the body is always in motion. So maybe one that's nice for me is just putting a little more weight on the left sit bone, like the left side of the pelvis, just a little tiny bit more weight. And then with the out breath, shifting the weight a little bit to the other side, to the right. And then as you breathe in, going back. It's just a rhythmic, can be very soothing movement. A little bit of rocking. And maybe your hands would like to be somewhere they can hold each other, or they can touch the body. That can be very grounding as well. Maybe your ears can hear. Might be soothing sound or quietness, or other sounds, but just letting them flow through you like a bell of mindfulness. Maybe your mind is producing thoughts or images. And that's also wonderful just to notice if that's happening. feelings. You might start to touch into the feeling space of emotion. There might be some things that are wanting attention. There might also be some sense of peace or calming. It can be a lot of things. And just knowing it's okay. This is our container we're holding. Also knowing at any time if you need to step the space, if there's something really too much for you, you can always open, you can always stretch, you can always move. You can turn off your camera if that gives you a sense of safety. Whatever helps you. Most important is to soothe, to be safe, to be allowed, to be you right now. Maybe the breath also feels really good. Maybe for some of you, the breath isn't feeling as grounding today. Maybe it's some other sensation in the body, or maybe it's something outside of you, like an image you can look at, or maybe it's a sound, maybe it's a memory of a person or a place that's very sweet, special. So I'm just going to allow us now. I've given some guidance and suggestions, but I want to give you some quiet time to really do it in your own way for a few minutes. And just to know that in this kind of container, it's normal and it's natural for pain to come to the surface. And if you have space and you can be with it, that can be very beautiful. I love what Ty says, that it's because of the pain in our heart that we hold, that there's pain in us, that the Buddha can come to us with compassion and care and hold us. So we don't have to fight it. We can allow it to open our compassion. So if that's working for you, I welcome that too. Let's just take about 5 minutes or so, and then I'll make a sound of the bell. Use whatever resources help you. Oh, maybe I'll start us with a bell too for the quiet time, and end us with a bell. you for doing that practice. I hope it brought some relief, um, or more grounding. Sorry for some. We have some. I'm next to the road here, but it's Sunday. But, yeah, I just wanted to say a little bit. I don't want to say too much on this topic of practicing in the crisis. It might seem a little strange after we do a lot of grounding. We feel very calm and peaceful. But some of us might. But you also might notice there's threads of tension there that you're connected to in the world. I don't know about you, but it was a pretty intense week here, starting with lecture on Tuesday. Things were happening here at Morning Sun, and just sometimes those things all come together. And I know that this is the Earth Holder community, and for many of us, there's this connection to the land, and we can feel some of the tension that exists with our own impacts. Lots of fires this season in California and earlier in Australia, and we've had just have a number of kind of maybe pressure points being pressed in our sort of collective shared world here on Earth that we're together on, and I think we can resonate with some of that. There's also has been and some political tension. Maybe you feel some relief now, but I think there's also that tension is still there, and the need and where we're going to be headed, and what we'll do, and how to navigate that going forward. There's a lot happening for us as humans, and I think it's nice to acknowledge that. And how do we practice? So mostly, I would say for me, it's to not get overwhelmed, to not be over to get into a space of anxiety, fear, uh, despair. These are all really hard things to practice with. And how to also for me really important lately has been I've been thinking about this is the how to practice with the enemy image or that that the kind of conflicts that arise when people are under stress, kind of this is not the right way, we need to go this way, or I'm afraid, these are my needs, I need to hold on really tight, and if you press against what I want to do, then it can turn into this conflict, and you might become my enemy inside someone. So I just noticed that it's been happening more. I feel that more in myself, and I see that more in folks that I practice with. This tightening a little bit, and there's a tendency to go into sides when that happens. And so I just wanted to share some of the, like I think even in the time of the Buddha, it was very difficult to live in community, conflict. And there's all these wonderful practices about I think the way I would describe it is meeting needs together, seeing that everyone's needs matter and that everyone could have a voice and be heard, listening to each other, not putting one group over another or one person's need over another. And this is where I think there's lots of wonderful modern practices that really fit well into Buddhism, like nonviolent communication. And I'm really inspired by nonviolence uh, and ahimsa, you could say. It's the Sanskrit for that, which is at the core of Buddhism and also many modern movements. So, um, with the enemy image, like this sense that, like, when our need is not met and we're really hurt, I think that's what I'm practicing with. There's a sense of, why did you do that to me? Can be the energy of like blame. And I think that knowing how to practice with that, where we don't have to say, like, either right or wrong, what you did is right or it's wrong, or I'm right or you're wrong, but somehow that what happened didn't meet me. It hurt somehow, what I was really longing for, and wasn't able to receive that, and it hurt, and to say, is it my fault, is it your fault, doesn't take us closer to understanding, but rather to say, like, can we have this dialogue of, well, yeah, this is what was happening for me, this is what I was looking for, and this is what happened, that it didn't meet me. I think those kind of conversations are really valuable, and sometimes we can't have them, but sometimes we can just use our imaginations to try to see deeper into, this is the actions of this person. And on some level, all of our actions are there to protect us or to try to meet our needs. And sometimes they're skillful and sometimes not. That's the language I like. But just to know that when we can see others as also acting in a way to try to meet their needs, even if it's very unskillful, we can touch this kind of compassion and also sometimes gratitude. I also think that gratitude is a very powerful way to sort of work with the enemy image or the blame and shame dynamics. So I just want to invite us to take a minute to ground again, just to bring practice into it, of coming home to ourselves and a sense of safety, if, as much as we're able here on the earth and in community, and loving kindness toward ourselves, toward each other, and the sense of safety in the body. We can touch that a little bit. And then just opening, our mind a little bit towards, and this is the loving kindness practice, which I really love, but I'm adapting a little someone we really cherish, who's been there for us or is there for us right now, that we could just appreciate their kindness, see their smile, feel their love, just any, doesn't have to be the perfect person, someone will do. Yeah, just feeling that belonging. And it might be the trees around you or the forest too that does that for you. And then turning towards someone where there's been more pain. And this might be a person you're in relationship with, or it might be more of an external actor, but where there's this sense of hurt. And you might not be having that sense right now, but it's just maybe it is there. There's a sense of some pain. And to just hold for yourself first that there was some pain there, and that's okay to feel that you could be cared for a little bit there, that your feeling is real, it's okay, it's allowed, not to feel that. There's some need that you have that's important, some value, something you hold dear. And just seeing the other person, seeing they also have that. Maybe they have some pain. Maybe they didn't understand or they couldn't see what to do. And just giving them that kind of space, if it's available. Not, and seeing what that does to the heart, a sense of opening towards And if you need to, you can come back to grounding, to breath, or open your eyes. And by the sound of the bell, give us a chance to do. What can I say just to wrap it up in terms of the most important things I see for practicing in times of crisis or difficult times, challenges? Cultivating our loving kindness, our compassion, in community of some kind, practicing with that enemy image work if it's something that's important to you. Um, Being in conversation and dialogue with sometimes the difficult conversations. I think another big one is practicing with impermanence and unknowns. And this kind of grounding in community can be very powerful for that because there is a lot of uncertainty. We also have a coronavirus crisis, if you like, and those kinds of events may continue to happen regularly. So, like, how we can be the person in the boat who is the calm, like holding space for those around us when we're able, or taking refuge in those who are calm when we are agitated. Um, Practice of looking deeply into interbeing nature so we can cross over that fear. I think also sometimes around the fear and the tightness, we want to control or hold on to things in the community, have it go a certain way, and that can be really, if we can touch this, like, okay, no birth, no death, some of these elements from time to time too, that can be a big way to expand out and like, it's okay, I'm gonna be all right, we're gonna be all right, we're on a journey together. And there's a lot of good things that we can all do too, like with this kind of community of nonviolence, there is, I think, possibility if we're touching together a sense of, oh, there's something really important that we could step into healing work around, like, just being called to do something that's standing up, maybe, or getting in the way of harm. And that, I just want to read a quote for you from Thai that I really love that's inspired me in that direction from my time in New York. But now I'm going more into a rest and recharge mode, but it's still part of nonviolence. It's like, there's time for resting and healing, and there's time for engagement, I think. So this is the quote from Love in Action, Writings on Nonviolent Social Change. The essence of nonviolence is love. Out of love and the willingness to act selflessly, strategies, tactics, and techniques for a nonviolent struggle arise naturally. Nonviolence is not a dogma, it is a process. Other struggles may be fueled by greed, hatred, fear, or ignorance, but a nonviolent one cannot use such sources of energies, for they will destroy those involved and also the struggle itself. Nonviolent action born of the awareness of suffering and nurtured by love is the most effective way to confront adversity. So there's that nonviolence coupled with kind of love, or cultivating loving kindness and compassion. Um, we're talking about nonviolence like that, it can be a very engaged practice. It can be a lot of different things. It can be being part of protest. It can also be part of the way we cook and eat. Um, so it has just very broad dimensions. It can be some in this book in later chapters or later sections, Thai writes about a monk in Vietnam who fasted for 100 days during the Vietnam War. And I don't know, he probably passed away doing that, but I'm not sure. And the thing is that when people saw his energy and commitment, that it was done out of love, and they could feel that, it moved them also to want to respond. So I just want to say that, like, our compassionate acts also have a rippling out effect. And then the last thing I'll read to you, just to say, is I think there's a sense that we're going in a direction of communal, being in community together, sharing. And some people are afraid of that, and there's resistance to that, and that's quite natural. But helping people go in that direction, a world where we no longer see our own value and others' value by the work they do, because that's kind of at the roots of the oppressive structures that we've had. Like, you only get to eat if you work, or this kind of old system from our agricultural days, way, way back, and getting groups of people to work and pressuring them to work for survival reasons. But I think we can move in a new direction, or back to a space of our value comes from our being human, being part of the cosmos, being part of, in relationship with all life. And then this sense that all needs matter. And instead of you owe me, like, because I worked, I want to give to you because I love you. The natural giving, I want to give to you, and I want to receive from you in the same spirit. Right? This is the practice of Dharma, giving and receiving. So it's been around for a long time, thousands of years, Buddhism and before. Just keep cultivating that together. Okay, that's what I have. I tend to go on too long. How is this, Simona? I was going to do questions, but I think I got just inspired to talk. So that's what happened. Thank you all for listening.
It's perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for your offering. And got a request to put the beautiful quote from Thai from Writings on Nonviolent Social Change in the chat. And so I did that for anybody who would like to maybe copy and paste. And so, yeah, I'm going to hand the mic over to our sister Stephanie, who's going to share a little bit about Dharma sharing.
Thank you, Simona. Thank you, Brother Phap Man, for such a beautiful, nourishing sharing. And before I share about Dharma sharing, you mentioned that you had questions, and sometimes we offer questions for folks to consider in Dharma sharing. Were the questions you were thinking about something that might work for that?
I usually like to get people to ask questions so that informs the talk, but it didn't seem to be flowing like that today. So, but I do love to answer questions, but also ask questions. I don't really have a question in mind though at the moment, just to go. But just maybe if people have questions, they can ask them in the Dharma sharing.
Dear friends, this is Simona bowing in, hoping that everybody enjoyed being in their Dharma sharing families. And I hope that you received the message about gathering back in the main room a little bit earlier so that we have the opportunity for a Q&A, or I should say Q&R, with Brother Monk. And just before we move into this, I do want to share a link in the chat with everyone, because It is a link that is a pathway to support the continuation of these teachings, to support our dear Dharma teacher today. So this is an opportunity for giving. It's dharmapathways.org/donate. If anybody would like to request another way, feel free to contact me, and we can do that. And just know that these offerings just can come from the heart, and anything is $2 a month. What feels good to you is welcomed and appreciated. And so now we'll move into some question and responses with our teacher today. Sarah Henry is here on the call with me and is going to be supporting and facilitation of that. So remember that you have the opportunity with the chat also to raise your hand, and there's instructions now posted in the chat on how to raise your hand, but also feel free to chat or just even manually the old-fashioned way, wave at us, and we'll keep an eye out for that. So thank you so much. I'll bow out and turn this over to but yeah, Brother Fulfillment, if you would like to offer any additional words before we move into this, please do.
You made an offer I can't refuse. To say words. The Dharma teacher has. I just wanted to point. Oh, there. See that? That's Sarah's house. I just wanted to reveal our connection. We're just practicing like that, so because for health reasons. But it's really great to be outside here. I just wanted to say that, and any question of the heart is really beautiful. It's something about your life and practice. I love questions like that. Sometimes questions that are hard to ask are a little bit vulnerable, but they're the questions that most of us have. And also with Dana, as I was saying, that sense of giving, because I have a real sense that everything flows around. You could give to an organization for social justice that you really love, or to a person that you want to repair a relationship with, give them a gift. So that also has a lot of value in terms of that, in terms of that interbeing nature of. So it's those kind of things matter a lot to me. I love the fact that it's called Q and R. I want to use that question and reflection. What can I love seeing what things are touched in me. I was just thinking about when I shared today a relationship that's a little bit challenging right now, and if I think about what hurts, then it's kind of like, I don't like that. And that's what I was offering today in the terms of the practice. And but when I stop and I say consciously, like, oh, this person did this and these things for me, or like, and then I get in touch with this, I can touch gratitude for them, then that enemy image doesn't like to hang out with that. Really, it doesn't really live together. So, but it's not about like getting rid of it. And I think I'm also answering the first question a little bit, because it's about that energy of that anger is from a sense of being threatened and to protect ourselves. And so it's not, to me, that we shouldn't feel that way. Because it has a place and a purpose. Anger, you know, it's been around. It's in all the mammals. We're mammals. Wonderful heritage, you know. And it's about understanding it deeply to know that its roots are around protection and safety. And also to know that we have really complex, different things than a lot of mammals, where we have our minds that can visualize an image, so and imagine, and very conceptual. So we can be angry about something that's more of an idea than an actual threat to our physical body and being. And so working with the mind is what the Buddha understood was essential for well-being, that when we're sick, it's because our minds are sick. And when our society is sick, it's because collectively our minds are a little bit sick. And that has to do with the kinds of images and ideas that we're holding and the way that we're perceiving and relating and not relating. And so the healing is about touching back into this connectedness in our own value and others' value through relationship. So just to say more, like in terms of being in New York, sacrifice, maybe in the sense that I like the word sacrifice in the it's taking it to make something sacred, but through sometimes the willingness to be a little bit uncomfortable. That's an odd thing, but there is something we can do there that with, like when I give the example of the monk who fasted for 100 days. And when Ty writes about this monk, he says, this monk didn't, I forget the name, sorry, I'm not good with names, but he says, this monk didn't decide to fast. He had to fast. It's a kind of energy that awakens in us from compassion, where we see something that we can do, or we're deeply in touch with suffering, and we are compelled to respond in a visceral way. And what we want to do is match that energy of compassion with wisdom, in the sense of this will really maybe make a difference, or it will help. And I think this monk also understood that his choice would influence others to think about the suffering of Vietnam from the war. You know? So being in New York was a little bit like that for me. Like, I want to be in this space. New York has a lot of pain. I mean, you just have to walk down any street and you can see the poverty and homelessness and despair, and you can feel the tension. And there are also beautiful places in New York and natural places. And so it's a complicated, it's not a one thing or a other thing, but it's like being in relationship with that. And for XR, being in XR was like, XR is not Buddhism, but it's also a little bit like an evolution of human consciousness, a new movement, you know, and it attracts a lot of Buddhist folks because it does have these principles that resonate pretty strongly, I think, with the core of the Buddha's teaching, not shaming, not blaming. And that's what I always understood to be, but also working with how we actually feel and trying to use that energy in a positive way. So we're allowed to feel anger, we're allowed to feel despair, but we don't try to use that. That's the way I tried to understand XR, and I tried to enter into XR with that spirit, and people had different views. But part of what I loved about XR was this sense of community and shared agreements that we would decide together, we would listen to each other. And so I just tried to bring the best parts of what I had to give to the community spaces, to those sharing circles that we created. And I was part of the regenerative culture working group to see if we could bring meditative elements in. And I think that creativity, and one of the things I also loved was this focus on democracy in the sense of not voting, but that there were ways where we could deliberate together, where everyone's like when we want to make a decision in XR circles, we do it very close to the Buddhist Sangha method, which is everyone has a voice, all the views are heard, but we make a choice together that goes in our collective direction that tries to meet all the needs, but doesn't have to be perfect, because then we can get stuck in trying to be perfect. And Buddhism really has that at its core too, like that we entrust ourselves to the direction of the Sangha, that we don't have to get every preference met, but we can have the basic needs of everyone met through looking together. So anyway, and I really think that's a part of our direction solution as a human species. Like our political systems have been really about adversarial approaches and like voting and party, this party, that party, competing. And instead of doing that, there are new democratic processes being created, and XR is promoting them, like Citizens Assembly, where everyday citizens deliberate about issues that are important to everyone. And it's been so successful. You take Republicans and Democrats and put them together in the same room, and they can talk to each other, in a small facilitated group setting, and because everyone's voice is heard. And it turns out that surprisingly, Republicans have the exact same needs as Democrats. And Democrats have that they want to be safe, they want to care for their families, they want to have, and the strategies are wildly different, but when people come together, it's possible to realign those things and find new ways of doing things. So anyway, it's a very long answer. How's our time? I like to talk, so thanks for listening.
We're good on time. Beverly sent in one. Hold on. Sorry about that. Beverly sent in one question by chat, and that will take up the rest of the time because we would like to close by 12:20:21. So 5 minutes. I'm happy to read the question out loud, which you were just touching on. When there is such an enormous divide in the US, yeah, it's been here forever, hasn't it? And so many of us are upset about the policies of the Trump administration. How can we practice in such a way to reach out to those with whom we have serious differences and even anger at their ignorance? Yeah, you were just touching in on that. So, yeah, about 4 minutes would be wonderful. Thank you.
Please do a bell or a wave or something if I start to go. It's so weird on Zoom. Oh yeah, I can look at my clock like that. Okay. Just my own personal experience. That's hard. It's nice to just acknowledge, right? Instead of saying, "Oh, just do this," right? I mean, just be there and say, "Oh, it's so hard to cross big divides, especially as you said, ones that have been there for a long time, and the sense that we need to compete or their adversarial style is good." I always am really happy when I get to talk to a Trump supporter, because they don't seem to hang out in the circles that I hang out in. But what I've tried to train myself to do, like obviously if I'm stressed, it's hard to hold space for other people, but I've been doing these practices with nonviolent communication, like listening circles, where we just practice listening to each other and reflecting back what we hear and trying to understand needs and feelings and how those things fit together. And so that's given me more capacity to hear. And I think what I also just said, that knowing that, hey, I know whatever this person's policy is or politics are, what policy they want, underneath that's like the strategy, what we say in NVC, like, I want to get somewhere. Well, you want to drive and I want to walk, but we want to get somewhere. Or, it's the underlying things, like coming down to the underlying things that help so much to help us find common ground. You know, and so when you listen to it, maybe someone you really disagree with their way they want to do something, the strategy, like I want to get rid of all taxes because that's the big problem, right? And it's like trying to hear underneath that, like, you know, maybe you're really what's really important to you is a sense of autonomy that you can do, that you can make choices about your life and not have someone else telling you what you have to do. You know, and so then we can start to say like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have autonomy, but also a sense of security? Like, what would happen if you were suddenly disabled and couldn't work and out of a job? What would happen then? You know, so like, I think dialogue that starts with honoring the needs, the real values, and our common ground around what we want together can be helpful. Like, we want autonomy, but we also want safety and security and community. You know, and I think people, once we start to talk about how to get there and how to go in that direction, can be really powerful. And how to facilitate that? Well, you know, like doing some training in nonviolent communication, I highly recommend. There's practices. One is that I found really valuable is called sociocracy. It's there's a beautiful book called Many Voices, One Song that's about using some methodology like nonviolent communication to make decisions in a group. And it's also in the part of XR, that's another thing that I really liked. But don't get me wrong, I don't think the XR is like the total solution. It's just it's a part of a movement. But I also don't think Buddhism is the total solution. It's everything can help. Everything can help. And putting our positive energy into anything and being willing to learn from the painful, because it's going to be painful, anything that we engage in, to take that as learning instead of I'm bad or I did it wrong, and offering that back to the other people when they're feeling that bad and wrong. That's I think the healing. That's the healing part. That can take us in a good direction. Good luck to us. Good luck to us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. And Brother Man will invite you to share some closing words or sharing the merit right at the end at like 12:29. But now I'll pass it over to Simona because we like to invite everyone to share who you are and where you are. Bowing out. Thank you so much.
Dear friends, thank you so much for sharing and bringing a bit of where you are, the land you're on, the peoples whose land you're on to this space. I'm putting a couple links or resources into the chat that may be supportive for anybody. And I'd also like to again offer the space to Brother Man for any closing words and anything you'd like to end the call with.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to say I'm very touched to hear everyone's voice on the call, and especially to hear the names of the land ancestors here in North America. Very touching. And gives me some kind of sense of hope that we're on a pathway to restoring right relationship with the land and the peoples of the land. And it's very important to me and very sweet to think of. And also, I believe that I'm on the tribal lands and the lands of is it the Abenaki people, Sarah?
Yeah, you got it, brother.
And I look forward to learning more about their ways and traditions and care for the land. And I think I'm reminded of I think it's the Haudenosaunee prayer. They have Thanksgiving prayer. It's quite long, but just to touch it, it ends with and now we are of one mind, or something like that. It's giving gratitude to the waters and the air and the fish and the birds and all the whole cosmos. And each section ends with our minds being one. And I thought we could use that phrase as a closing, a sense of our minds being one, united in gratitude for the living world, that we are belonging to it, and also for all the gifts we've received. So just interbeing oneness in that gratitude. If we could touch that as a close, that would be my invitation. And maybe, should I do the bell, or would you like to offer us bells, Simona? Maybe Simona, I'll pass it.
If you'd like to offer a bell.
Okay. All right. Let's hold that sense of togetherness, or oneness, of one mind, in gratitude and care and reverence. And maybe if you want to turn in a direction that has meaning for you, you can offer that energy out too, offering energy of care and protection and reverence, gratitude. Your friends.